So thank you, Photo Wings Foundation. Well, everyone who just joined, we're here with Sara Terry, an amazing photographer, an amazing Seven colleague, and a friend. Sara, thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Ilvy. I just want to jump on it for 1 second to say also
Yeah.
that if folks don't know Photo Wings, they should know that they fund a lot of really wonderful programs in the photo world. The founder, Susie Katz, has been really dedicated to supporting Photoville and Seven and just the everyday projects. It's a really wonderful funder. Get to know them if you don't. They've got some great resources on their website too. Sorry.
Yeah, they really do. Thank you, Sara. Yeah, they really do. So I'm hoping and guessing and thinking that everyone already knows Sara, but in case you don't, let me try to introduce you, but you've done so much. But here is Sara's biography. So you are based in Los Angeles. Are you? Are you there right now? I mean, yeah,
correct.
You are, right?
True.
Okay, true.
That's right. I got that one.
Okay, and she's an award-winning documentary photographer and filmmaker, and she's known for her work covering post-conflict stories. And she's a 2012 Guggenheim Fellow for her long-term project, Forgiveness and Conflict: Lessons from Africa. And that's actually the work that I kind of started to know you from, because I'm heavily invested in African stories and I always knew your work, and I can't believe we're now in the same agency. Her first long-term post-conflict work is Aftermath, Bosnia's Long Road to Peace, which led her to found the Aftermath Project in 2003. So, yeah,
sorry,
well done. Yeah, and the website is now in the chat for everyone. Please check it out. It's amazing and beautiful. So for today, the question or the title of the seminar kind of explains the whole thing, but it's 4 questions. So we're only going to ask Sara 4 questions about her work. And I hope she's going to share all of what she knows with us. And the questions I kind of put together because, yeah, let's first explain why this kind of started. Because when I started out as a young photographer, I am now 36, but I started when I was around 20 years old. And I was at a lecture of a fellow photographer who was showing his failed images. And that specific talk inspired me so much because it made me feel that, oh, if he is taking images that are failed or not perfect, maybe I can become a photographer too, because I had a huge imposter syndrome. And even throughout my whole early career, I was feeling that I couldn't really become a real photographer. And because of that, when I now give lectures myself, or when I'm teaching, I always make sure to show people the the photographs that I took that didn't really work out. And I hope it is an inspiration. And yeah, that is one of the questions that will be one of the 4 questions. But let's start with the first one, Sara, which is, what was your most important photograph so far in your career? And
well, yeah, we've got images, so I'll share the screen.
Exactly, and if you can share your screen.
Yeah, and yeah, we'll go right into it. Let's see.
There we go.
Yeah. So it's so hard choosing important or what's had an impact. I mean, my work has always been outside of the news cycle. So I was a journalist for many years. I had covered every kind of news story you could imagine. And I came to photography in a much more personal way. So, and I deliberately stayed outside the news cycle. So to know, did it have an impact or was it seen or read? What I can say about this image is, and this is not a great copy of it. Sorry, it's a bit too contrasty, but I couldn't find it in my archives. This is from the 5-year project I spent exploring the aftermath of war in Bosnia. And this was done at a time when all the concentration and the assignments and news and awards were going to conflict photography. And, you know, well-deserved there too, but it was Iraq and Afghanistan. And I was exploring, this began in 2000, what I thought was an incredibly important story, which is what happens when war ends, because it doesn't mean it's over. And so this is a Muslim widow looking into body bags of recently exhumed victims of the banal term ethnic cleansing, which actually was genocide perpetrated against Bosnian Muslims, primarily by Bosnian Serbs and Serbs from Serbia. This was a huge, the project had 5 parts to it. And this was just like a really important space to be looking at the exhumations. And I wasn't trained in photography. I knew more about fine art. This reflects my influences. It's very Vermeer quality. Shout out to Netherlands. But it also became, it's the second image in the book, not the first, because I didn't want you to think you would, or it's not the cover photo, but because I didn't want you to think you would know what the story was about. But it is the opening into the project. It's been collected and it's in museums. And it was from this work that I started the Aftermath Project, because of a long-term photography workshop I was taking with Sam Abel, when he said, what impact do you want your work to have? And I knew, and me completely unknown as a photographer, like won tons of awards as a print person, but who, nobody knew who on earth I was. And I knew that I wanted other photographers to tell post-conflict stories. So I guess in a way you could say this was that impact. But I've added a second picture in here as well to tell you, because it's the impact on me. And it's also a collected photo, and it's also an important photo, but it tells other things. So I'm going to show it, and I want to tell everybody it's a graphic image from an exhumation pit. And just to stay with me a little bit, because I'm going to tell you how to read it. And if you don't want to see it, it's not like gruesome, but it's graphic. And just turn the screen off if you don't want to see it, and you can listen. But this image, ultimately for me, this next image is, for me personally, the one that had the biggest impact. And it is, let me, this. So I couldn't, in the 2.5 or 3 years of working in exhumation pits, I couldn't make a good photograph. I always was at a distance. I hate these places. I wrote about this in my book, Aftermath, Bosnia's Long Road to Peace. But I realized I was too far away. That classic photography, if your picture's not good enough, you're not close enough, which I don't agree with on every level. I couldn't stand these places and everything they represented. And this woman, Eva, with the white hair, is a forensic anthropologist who this day asked me to come into the pit, which I'd never done, and stand on a part of the grave mound. And because they had found a teenage boy's hands, and it was a remarkable thing for forensic anthropology to find that it had been preserved. And she made me stand there with her point and shoot camera, and I nearly threw up. And the Bosnia project was all slides with my Leica. And as I saw the picture, though, I knew I'd found the picture that told the story of what had happened in these mass executions.
You said this was the first time that you were really standing
right in the pit. I had always been on the edge, always shot around the edge, shot complex compositions. But this one I had to be in there, and it was because of Eva. Because when I looked, what I saw was this incredible humanity in the middle of that kind of horror and destruction. And it's interesting, they're in white, it's sort of like that metaphorical representation of good and evil. But these forensic anthropologists believed they were bringing these people back to life by giving them their names, or by bringing them out into a place where their DNA could be identified and they could be restored to their families. So for them, it's a story of life. It was another 6 months before I understood that this was also a reference to my fine art background, and a deeply metaphorical one for the image, because of the way the hands are in the grave. It's of course an echo of the Sistine Chapel, and the moment when Jehovah gives life to Adam. And I'm just going to go back to the
where was this published? Was it published?
No,
because it was after the
there wasn't a lot of interest. There wasn't a lot of interest in Aftermath stories. It's grown, I'm grateful to say, since the Aftermath Project has helped like build that forum for it. But no, it's been exhibited. It was exhibited at Open Society. I think it's been around. It's a tough image, and it's the last one in the chapter. There's only 12 exhumation pictures in the book, and it's the last one. And for me, the grounding is, I realized that I always say to people, stop and look again, because this is a picture about love. This is a picture about life. And for me as a photographer, I realized that it meant this is where I always want to be. This is where, when the worst things happen, I want to be there when humanity shows up again and says, no, you don't get the last word on who we are as human beings. You don't get to say that evil and hatred and destruction and genocide are the way of the world. This is who we are. We show up, we bring back life. So you have two images. One is more external and had a bigger impact in the world. And this one I still think is one of the most significant pictures I've made. And I'll just go back to the other one in case that's a little, whoops, not into that. Oh, sorry.
No.
We'll just go back there. So, yeah.
So did you ever have any, like, when they were exhibited, for instance, did you have conversations about them with audience looking? Do you know how the impact, because to you it was your most important photograph because it also inspired you to take a certain route. Was this impact, what did people say about the image when you would speak to them? Because yeah, it's quite a heavy.
I tend to read. I've given a lot of presentations on the Bosnia work. It was one of the first big aftermath stories in modern, conflict times, I think. There were certainly other people who went back and did aftermath in Vietnam and stuff, but it was probably one of them in the 21st century. The project was from 2000 to 2005. So I've given a lot of talks and a lot of lectures. I talked to a lot, also a lot of photography students, and I read that section of the book to them. And they, I find, are incredibly moved by it and understand, because I talk about the importance of knowing where we, stand in our work and who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. Because on one level, also, sadly, the most newsworthy stuff out of Bosnia has been the exhumations, and the anniversaries at Srebrenica, which are important, but it's like, oh, it's an anniversary, the media is going to do something.
Yeah.
And so it just is a picture that takes some talking to. And I always say this is a picture about love, because I think we have to learn. And I've had friends say to me, I can look at that now. I've never been able to look at pictures like that. I can see that now. You've given me a different way of understanding, because I think we're so desensitized into images of violence, or massacres or whatever, or we've seen so much.
Yes, definitely.
We either turn the page or we close our eyes, but to give people a ground to stand on, to consider humanity as opposed to atrocity, I think is a way of building visual compassion and empathy and literacy. And I've had people respond to me in that way.
Yeah, I feel it when you look at the hands touching. Maybe we can move back once more or forward.
Sure. I'm getting there.
It's interesting because I know the image. And of course, at least to me, the first thing when seeing this image is just heartbreak. But just to know that these two people, and there are a lot of more of them, of course, are doing this job. And there is a lot of love in this image. And it really shows that you were able to capture it, even though it must have been very scary to stand right there instead of on the edge. I mean, the edge already is a lot to handle, I can imagine.
Bad enough. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it took me 2 years of being in exhumation pits to make this photograph, which is another case for long-term projects and what it takes for us to get over, our own hesitations or uncertainties. It's and I always acknowledge first, like I did with today, this is a tough image, but just stay with me a minute.
Exactly.
Where there's a way to think about this. So I learned, and Piotr and Eva are the people who taught me that this whole chapter, this whole story in Bosnia was the story of life.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. So it's difficult this way we're doing this conversation, because there's only 4 questions, even though I think we could talk for at least another hour about just these 2 images. But I would like to ask you the next question, the second out of 4. Feels like a countdown almost. But what is your biggest photo failure? And I don't like the word failure too much, because I don't believe failures really exist, but I hope you and the people that are watching understand, yeah, failure, like which image went completely wrong, and yeah, how did you solve it?
I love that you hesitate to use the word failure, because I know somebody who said nothing's a failure. It's just one step in figuring out the solution. You know, so I think that is part of failure. Robert Redford gave an amazing talk on failure, you know, at Sundance one year when I was there, and we don't give ourselves permission to fail, or we read so much into it without understanding that that's part of the creative process. So I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask everybody, do me a favor, because this is a really abrupt change in imagery and I don't want to dishonor the space we've been in. Just like close your eyes for, you know, until I tell you to open them again, because we're going to make a shift and we're shifting to Hollywood. I apologize for the abruptness of it, but these are the, I don't know, the extremes of where I've worked. So
I felt that. Yeah, I'm like,
yeah. Close your eyes. Okay, you can open them. I am I'm in the union here in the United States to work on TV and film sets. I wanted to be able to do this as backup work. I haven't been doing all that much of it lately, but I used to think that shooting on a set had to be like so fucking easy, excuse my language, because like it's just you're photographing what somebody else has framed, and you know, and it's lit, and duh, how hard can it be? It's some of the hardest work I've ever.
How hard can it be? It's lit. Yeah, that's what I would almost think. Like,
I know,
why
right?
is it so difficult? I would think there's lights on there. There's a guy or woman arranging the lights, and you are there, and you capture what's already beautiful.
Snap. Okay,
not true.
Here's what goes wrong. There's probably 20 people around this frame. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 12. There's an artist who won't let you photograph during roll. You can only shoot during the rehearsal. There is the question of where I can even fit in this. There's a question of whether or not the crew likes you. There's the question of like, you know, that you've made good friends enough with the camera crew that they let you kind of like, you know, squeeze in to a space to make a photograph. There's also how do you make sure that you're not distracting the artist while you're working on the, you know, lens. And this is a scene from a TV show that didn't last long about a boy with Minnie Driver. And it was one of the first things I did. Actually, my first job was shooting behind the scenes for a part of a season of The Voice, which was like, you know, bliss, because it's like, oh my God, here's all these people and all these things are happening and it's a fishbowl, you know, like I can go anywhere and photograph anything apart from getting into the set where I'd be on camera and stuff like that. But so here I am in this space. I'm using the wrong lens. I've got a Canon 70-200, which is one of my favorite lenses, but I needed to have been on a short lens, the 24-105, which I use on set. And I couldn't get, then there's also takes, all these things, people watching off camera. I went to get my lens. She's a particularly difficult, actor to work with in terms of the, you know, the limitations on it. Some actors are pros and they just are like, yeah, do your job, shoot away, I don't care. You know, some actors you find you know, because you also have to establish some kind of a rapport there to be doing that work. So she's imitating giving birth. And I should have been on a wide lens and I wasn't, but there's also, you can see in one picture, because I can't shoot the taping, in the background of the photograph, in the rehearsal is a tech, you know, like that's what happens. I moved out of this scene to try to get to my camera and they rolled another rehearsal and it turned out I was actually on, I ducked when I saw it and somebody caught me on camera.
Oh.
There had been one other little stuff. It was just a rehearsal. It shouldn't be a big deal, but in a set this tight and this fraught, people were so annoyed. They went, so yeah. So here's like, I needed that wide lens, didn't have it.
So she's giving birth now, just to like, you should have her legs on it, basically.
Completely. You should see that she's on the dining room table. I've got put in 3 here. That's the moment of, you know, like she's in that stress. Nowhere, there's another photo what I took farther back, but has a tech person in it. So I am coping with all these things. I realize I've been caught on camera, or somebody tells me. One of the camera ops is so nice. He goes, there's a reason they call it rehearsal. Don't sweat it.
Lovely. That's good.
I know, it's wonderful. But the photo editor from NBC calls me and is like, what's going on? They've told me, I've never had this happen. The executive producers say you have to leave the set. You know, you're not coming in tomorrow. I'm firing you. And I was like, you know, the only reason I was there that day was because Rob Reiner, the wonderful filmmaker and son of Carl Reiner, was going to be on set that day. That was the picture they wanted, really, but I was trying to do the job. And, and again, this was my first kind of.
And like you're saying that you were trying to do your job and deliver something extra?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was like, I'm here, you've hired me for the whole day.
Okay.
The senior photographer who'd kind of gotten me in at NBC had to come down with me and goes, "Oh, Sarah, I would have shot this way." And he apologized to me later. He's like, "I'm so sorry, I had to do that." And I said, "No, that's fine."
Ooh.
And there I was with a day. This was in the morning, and I had to stay for the full day because Rob Reiner wasn't coming until the afternoon. And I had been completely shamed. I was fired. I knew it. And it took every ounce of my dignity to just maintain and to just keep doing the work. And I went up to the first AD, that's the first assistant director, they run a set, who had really ratted me out. He'd blamed me for something that had happened, that, he'd given me permission to do something. It had been a mistake, but I'd gotten, permission. I went up to him and said, "I'm sorry for what happened. We're going to see each other again. Probably it's a small world." I just maintained in every way that I could. And then when Rob Reiner hit the set that afternoon, all the producer writers, everybody was all a titter because, they love Rob Reiner, and nobody was going to ask to get their photograph taken with him. And I, in the midst of knowing these are the people who had fired me, I went up, or been part of it, or been in the room. I went up to each one and I said, "Would you like me to make sure you get a picture with Rob? Let me set that up for you." I did. I had so much dignity that day. It's just like, I still never worked for NBC again. Sometimes people say it takes 7 years. I think I'm coming up on that. But so I made sure everybody got their, here's my photo with Rob Reiner.
Oh,
and then I
lovely.
did, the photos I did that day of Rob were, he was like angry bagel guy in this set. This is not the best picture, I don't think, but it wound up on some of the best of lists the end of that year.
Hey, well done.
TV set photography. And then I threw in, this is the photograph that I actually like as a photographer. I think that's a much more interesting photograph. It's kind of like David Bowie's Hero cover, where he's doing that kind of sign language thing.
Exactly. Hands moving.
Yeah. So we can stay with Rob there, but that's the one, that I got that was their money shot. And so I delivered that whole day. I worked an extra long day, and I've never had a problem in documentary work, or when I've had photojournalism assignments. I mean, sure, there's snafus, or people can be jerks, or you can make a mistake, but I've never lived through a day like that,
But it sounds very, uptight as well. Like, isn't there a little wiggle room for a little mistake like this?
Depends on the set, depends on the director, depends on the talent, depends on so many things. And I've made mistakes on other sets. Everybody makes a mistake on set. You just roll with it. But that was so highly, tuned. It was, so the whole how hard can it be to take a photograph on set? That's how hard it can be, and I'm still really proud of the fact that I just didn't crawl into a hole and walk away that day.
Well,
I can look at it and go, I did a good job. But
that is a skill as well. And I think for people who are watching now, and for the ones that are doing photography assignments, I'm pretty sure we've all been in situations where you just don't even know how to save the day. I always feel, just like Sarah says now, just keep going. It's kind of like Dory in Finding Nemo. Just what does she say? Keep swimming, keep swimming. Because that's really what we should be doing. You really feel that if you continue to shoot and just to behave well, it should all get solved in the end. But it's
you apologize for what's wrong if you can. If there's somebody you need to apologize to, if you're working for an NGO and you've done something that's offended somebody, you apologize, you fix what you can.
100%.
You act with grace. You do not, no matter how unfair it was, don't fight, don't argue, don't call anybody else out, don't blame another human being, just look for grace in yourself. And I also think, it's funny because when I mentioned assignments and documentary work, I've never not had the image be there. It's always there. I have never failed in that sense, which is, a weird thing to say. And in long-term work, obviously I can take more than just a moment, but even in news events, you know, when I've just been really quiet, if I can't find it and I look in a place that I'm not expecting, or I turn around, I mean, I have a whole set of questions that I teach in another workshop that trigger new ways of seeing, you know, when you're failing. But yeah, I just trust that the image is waiting to be seen, and you'll see it. And, you know, if you're going to have to deal with the human stuff around it, you know, and I just think if you can maintain your grace and your dignity, no matter what anybody else thinks from that day, you can look back at it and go, wow, I screwed up, but I did the very best I could as a human being. And I don't think we can ask for more, you know?
Yeah, so true. So true.
What's been your worst moment? I know this is a conversation with me, but like, what's your, I'm just curious.
My worst moment is probably flying to, so I've been photographing stories in South Africa, also a lot of them around Nelson Mandela when he was still alive. And I think I flew to South Africa 4 times because everyone thought he was going to pass away, and he didn't. And then one of the times I was actually in South Africa photographing something totally unrelated, nothing to do with Nelson Mandela. I was there for 3 weeks, and I flew home without realizing he was actually in hospital right in that week. So I landed at Schiphol Airport and then opened my phone. Nelson Mandela passed away. And I could have known he was in hospital while I was in South Africa, but I didn't. And I missed the whole first day because I had to like book a new flight and fly to South Africa. And it was difficult to explain to me to newspapers, like, why aren't you there? On Facebook, it showed you were in South Africa. I'm like, yeah, I was there, but I was working on another story, and yeah. So he basically passed away when I was in the plane, even though I flew back and forth to South Africa and waited at the hospital, and like all the press did. Yeah. So that was mine. But yeah, it happened, I guess. Yeah. So for anyone who has a question, please put them in the Q&A. Sarah's here now to answer any of your questions. I still have 2 questions left. One of them is, what is your dream image or story? So not necessarily the next project you want to work on, but one that, even if it's impossible to shoot it, but just a project that would be the perfect story to you, that you kind of, you know, you have this project in the back of your mind sometimes.
I have, there's 3 actually. In a weird way. It was funny. I thought of 2 for you. One of them is that I would really like to shoot it. BTS is what behind the scenes work is. That's what I did on The Voice. I would love to shoot behind the scenes for the British director, Steve McQueen, the Black director, who's just done astonishing work. I have so much Lovers Rock in his recent 5-part series, Small Axe, blows me away for the camera work, and it was so beautiful. And BTS is just this really wonderful space where there's a lot of complexity and layers that you can work in. I'm really longing to do, I spent so much of my life, as in all my forms of storytelling, kind of pointing out injustices. And I need to do a project that is almost like the grave picture again, that shows our humanity. And for me at the moment, I feel like it would be some kind of long-term project in small town America, which at a time when we're so polarized, I wanted to find the things that talk about our humanity. And then the 3rd project is one I've had in my mind, and I've been doing research on it for a while, and you will laugh. It's called Being Sara Terry, which I apologize for the what appears to be the intense egotism of that, but it's inspired by Being John Malkovich. And it's something that began, you know, the concept for it began many, many years ago, but it's encountering through Facebook the first time the number of Sara Terrys there are in the world. And there aren't that many, relatively speaking, like to John Smith, But when I began seeing like a blonde Sara Terry with 3 perfect magazine picture perfect children, you know, a transgender Sara Terry, you know, all these Sara Terrys, that I just became so fascinated about the idea of what's in a name. And I've reached out to a couple of them. I've interviewed them. I'm you know, want to gather their family photos and my family photos. I don't know what that's going to become. Will it be one, like, you know, conglomerate Sara Terry? But that's, I can't even quite figure out how to tell that story yet. So that's yeah.
What a cool idea.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I could never do it.
You could do being Ilvy Njiokiktjien and you'd be the only one.
Yes,
you know?
exactly. It would be the quickest project.
Yeah.
But this is beautiful. You know, so what about Sarah's with an H? Are they included?
No.
Just the Sarah's without the H.
It's literally Sara without an H. And in some cases, I really also make the distinction as to whether you were born a Sara Terry or whether you married into it. And
you're strict.
One so for, oh yeah, because it's a different thing to be a name you grew up with. I mean, it's 2 first names. It's Sara without an H. There's really specific cultural context for H and no H that Sarahs know about.
Really? Can you, I know I'm not allowed to ask, I can only ask 4 questions, but tell me everything about the Sarah with the H and without. It'll be
that was a sneaky way. That's a sneaky way to not ask a question. No, it's just like Sarah, when I was named Sara without an H, it was a more modern name. It was more, I know Sarahs have attachments to the name. They'll talk to you about it and what it means and what strength there is in the name or what it means to have Terry, you know, and it deals with family things. And, you know, the fact that there's a transgender woman who chose the name Sara Terry, I'm like, wow, how did that happen? I'm interested in her. People who married into Sara Terry, I'm a little interested in, they were Sarahs and became a Terry. I'm a little interested in the impact of the name and in the switch from one name to another. But so it's like, how do you do this visually? So it's archives and I mean, and I just got a Google alert, my Google, that's how it, in contemporary times where it began was I had my Google alert set to Sara Terry and these Sara Terrys were showing up. I'm like, going, who the heck is that? That's not, you know, like there's a realtor in Dallas who's the top commercial realtor in the city, you know, but there's
all these different people.
I have a whole file. There was a Sara Terry on Facebook who has a picture of herself with her husband in front of the Taj Mahal. I had the exact same picture with my ex from the 1980s.
So
and it's
2 Sara Terrys in the same spot, different times.
Crazy stuff. Yeah. And then there's the, I got a Google alert yesterday and there's a Sara Terry who I'm pretty sure I've tracked her on Facebook. She's getting married on October 29th. And I'm seriously thinking about writing to her and asking if I can go photograph her wedding.
Please let us know how this goes. I want to buy the book. If there's a book, I really want this. What is it going to be? A book?
It's like, it would be, I think it can be a book, but it's, you know, things like that are partly inspired by like your birthday series, shooting a birthday of every, you know, Hollander through the ages. But like Photoville loves the idea. They're like, oh my God, we could do a panel, you know, like, will the real Sara Terry please stand up? We can do cutout pictures, you know, with being Sara Terry's, you know, next to them. I mean, it's a really funny idea. And if any of y'all take that idea and do it, you know, I'm going to find you and hunt you down.
Yeah. Now they're really afraid to ask anything in the Q&As. Now you scared them. Please, people, if you have any questions, ask them, because we are now down to the last question, the 4th question, which is, what advice would you give your younger self? Which might be helpful to some of the people listening here.
I would say it works out. Don't be afraid. This crazy path you're on, because my life has been completely, you know, into virtually every type of storytelling, from print, you know, public radio, television, documentary photography, documentary filmmaking. And it just has been kind of like, God, if I just stayed in one, I'd be, you know, and I've done well. I mean, I appreciate what I've done, but they've often been accompanied by these changes have often been accompanied by a really huge personal space in my life that felt like walking into an abyss. And I did learn early on to trust those instincts, but I think that I would tell my younger self it's going to happen more than once. You know, don't be afraid. Put put your foot into the darkness, and you're going to find that something comes up to meet you. Yeah, that. And
how would that advice have changed your career path, you feel?
Nothing would have changed my career path. I don't honestly, unless I'd made a bad decision. My whole work has always been intuitive. You know, I things change because of something that happens in my life. I tried having a career strategy, business plan, whatever, early on. It fell flat on its face. I learned that the way I work is in response to what's around me. And I think I would say that it's always, I mean, I didn't become a photographer till I was 40. You know, I mean, it's hard to know what career advice to have given to somebody who's moved through so many things. But I think it would be, it's okay when you're afraid, you know, it's part of the process, and you're going to get there, you know.
That's beautiful.
Like, I'm happy with where I am. I'm not, you know, I'm not the go-to person for assignments. I'm not famous, but but I've done things that I think I'm proud of. I've done things, I'm satisfied with working the way I work. I'm satisfied with the opportunities, and I'm satisfied. And I think I would re-emphasize this to my younger self, but I think I also was always there, that you hold the door open for the people who are behind you. You never shut that
you're
door.
really a big inspiration in that sense. You're amazing. And I also feel what you should be proud of, and I hope you are, is that your projects really always show a lot of lessons to humanity, I would say, and a lot of love. It really, I mean, the hand picture showed that, but so many of your other work and just the thoughtfulness around it. Yeah, you should be really proud of what you've built in those years, really, truly.
Thank you, Ilvy. I paid her to say that, but thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. You know, we don't always tell each other, you know, right? That what we value and what we appreciate. And teaching gives me that space to work with younger photographers that way. But I think sometimes we have to tell our colleagues, and the women, I love that about the women in 7, we do that with each other. You know, I think it's maybe the way some people have been raised is that women are more likely to do it, but I know lots of men who do as well. And I would say that too, you know, be kind to others, tell them what you love.
I really like our little women WhatsApp group within 7. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, but we have a WhatsApp group with just the women, and I really like that because there's a lot of compassion shown in there. That's what I like. So there's a question coming into the Q&A from Sayan Hazra from India.
Of course,
we both know him quite well. And the question is, have you ever worked on a story thinking about a specific publisher in mind?
No, I mean, it's an interesting question, but no, because it's just, seriously, do not make a business plan the way I work in the world. Honestly, I'm living proof that if you're just doing what you're supposed to be doing, things work out. You know, I do not recommend that to most people, because like, no, I have some really great work that hasn't been published yet that I figure, you know, eventually will. You know, like I made the first photographs in Afghanistan from inside of a burqa, you know, and I made them because the only way you can make those photographs is with a tiny cell phone camera. And I did it with the Sony Ericsson P910. Those never got, actually, they're published in Italy, but you know, they're not, and I didn't want to put them out again right now because I didn't want to, there's so much going on, you know, but there's lots of things that'll have their space. But me thinking in terms of having a publisher, no, it's why I started my own publishing, you know, books, my small handmade books, 10x editions, you know, I'll put it in the
10x. Check that out, guys. It's amazing.
Put the website there. Yeah. It's part of a way to like go, I want to see this work in another format, you know, and so they're small handmade books, you know, that I then started doing with my friends. You know, it's just like, no, but good question, Cyan, because I think some people do. I mean, there are plenty of people who want to shoot for National Geographic. It's like never, all kudos to Nat Geo and everybody who works there, but I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to look like a Nat Geo photographer looks, you know. I know Nat Geo photographers who talked about And I don't know if it's changed now. So, because I can't say these are contemporary conversations. They're maybe, 10 years old, or when I first began in photography, there was a way you had to shoot to be a National Geographic photographer, a type of light, a type of shot. And a lot of them feel that they sacrificed their own personal, vision to do that. And I didn't come into photography because I wanted to become a photographer. I came into it because
that's an interesting thing to say. Why did you did, so you just said, I didn't go into photography to become a photographer. So you went into photography to...
Because words failed me at a time in my life when I really needed them to reach somebody. And I'm somebody who grew up on words, I'm somebody, like in the 6th grade, my teacher thought I was going to be a criminal defense attorney, and the vice principal thought I'd be a union labor leader. Words were righteous to me, and they failed me when I really needed them. And it was so hard that I just stopped talking and I stopped writing, and I picked up a camera because I thought that's how I could reach the person I couldn't reach. And then it became about me, so it's just not the way I think. And like, again, that's not a business plan. If you want to be an assignment photographer, I'm not the person you should be talking to.
No, but I do think it's solid advice to anyone who works in this industry or who aspires to be in this industry, is that if you are shooting with a publisher in the back of your mind, definitely your work is going to change in a way that might not be as close to your heart as you initially hoped that it would be. I mean, it's always good when you're on assignment to at least keep in mind the publication you're shooting for, but don't start personal work with a publisher in mind. Just shoot and put your heart into it, I guess.
No, when you're working for a photo editor, that photo editor is part of your head. They've hired you for you, but they need a photo, and you have to, deliver that to them. I remember, Alex Webb actually said to me, you have no idea how lucky you are when I first started photography, because you don't have any other voices inside your head. Just go shoot. Don't even show your work to anybody for a long time. And it was a really interesting, way to, it was great advice actually for me at that time. And I also, just for you all, I wanted to circle around to what Ilvy said at the beginning about the lecture that she heard about a photographer who showed, failed images. There were two moments, but there's a Renoir museum. If I said Rembrandt earlier, Ilvy, I meant we were talking before. It's a Renoir museum. It's in Philadelphia. And can I tell you, that museum is filled with really bad Renoirs. I mean, I remember being so astonished to go in. This master painter did a lot of mediocre work, and it just shows his thought process and the idea that you can reach creative genius without doing it every time. I mean, you fail, you sketch, and again, that's part of the process. It's not a failure. It's a step towards figuring out what works, and I just took so much heart from that Renoir, and from the Nat Geo photographer, Mike Yamashita, who showed us a roll of 36 images back in the days when we were shooting Ektachrome film. And he showed his thought process, and you could see how many times he didn't get the picture, and it's just so encouraging. We don't do that. And we don't do that in our self-curated selfie lives, right? We show exactly what we want you to see. We don't show what life looks like. It doesn't look like perfection all the time.
No, I think it's the best way to at least have it part of a lecture. When I go to any photography lesson or lecture, it's always lovely to see the real person and not just a picture perfect keynote presentation of all the beautiful images. I love to see the failed images, because it's encouraging to know that the other person is also just a person that also takes crappy pictures sometimes. I think that's amazing. I think we all do
a lot of crappy pictures. I take a lot of crappy ones.
Oh, there's a question coming in again from Sayan. How do you visually unblock yourself when you see a story cannot be translated into visuals, literally? Oh, that's a difficult question. I'm so happy the question is to Sara and not to me.
I think Sayan knows a little bit of how I work, and this is the workshop I used to do. It used to be called Finding Your Visual Voice. But those are the 4 questions I referred to that help unblock it. But so for me, and again, sometimes if you're shooting an assignment and you're covering an event, you just get what you get, right? And it's crappy or not. It's just like, that's what it is. But if you're doing a project that you can work on for a long period of time. You can revisit things, but I use poetry, you know, Wisława Szymborska's poetry. She has 2 very specific post-conflict poems, taught me how to see what aftermath looks like. Because like, you can't like, that was like the first big project I did, aftermath. Oh, what does that look like? I mean, the visuals are the Srebrenica widows or the exhumation bits, but how do you show what that feels like? How do you show that loss? How do you show what's no longer present? Like, how do you make a photograph about that? So I just feed myself, you know, with literature and poetry, and I work in metaphor a lot. I'm really comfortable in that space. I think visual literacy is a really important tool in thinking that and understanding like how meaning is communicated through imagery. And I think that's something you learn through paintings and reading about what's behind it, you know, or reading like critique for it. I mean, the series that I've been working on, still working on, COVID has made it, I've had to put it on hold for a while, but it's the paintings, the photographs, restaging famous paintings of nude women made by men. I don't know how to make that photograph. I mean, the obvious thing is there, you're flipping the, you know, the painting. Those are on my own website, saraterry.com. But you're flipping the painting in gender wise, but for the meaning and the metaphor of what's involved, I spent 2 or 3 months like researching the painting and thinking about it. So it's a really deep thought process. I mean, it's a good question, Simon, but you've got to really commit, I think, to, you have to detach outcome from your thinking. And you have to be interested in process. So you have to stop thinking about the image you want to make, and you have to become absorbed in process and content.
Yeah, that's a great way to get unstuck, not to be focused on the result too much, because if you keep thinking, oh, I need to make this, I need to make this, okay, I need to really finish this now, oh, I need to at least start. Don't tell yourself these kind of things, because it will block you further. I can tell you now, I've done it, and you are stuck. And the way to get unstuck is to kind of let go that voice in your head that keeps telling you, go, go, go. No, just breathe, you know, and then don't push too hard as well.
And quite often it means staying a little bit longer in the place where you think the photo isn't, because quite often something's about to happen that that you're supposed to be there to watch. And that I've learned a lot, and in news events in particular, because everybody's rushing one way, you know, or you think the photo's where that is, but I've found that sometimes you're just supposed to stay and wait, you know, the photo's there, the image is there to be seen.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for everything you've answered, and you've answered a lot more than just 4 questions. I think I asked 5, and then Sayan asked 2, and then I think we talked about 10 other things. So
I talk a lot, you know, I'm not a, you know, shrinking violet. I love that you asked me to do this, Ilvy. I love being in conversation with you.
It was lovely having you, really. And I hope to see you in real life soon as well. That would be lovely. World opening up again a little bit. So let's hope we're seeing each other soon. And for everybody that is now watching, make sure to check out all the other events on 7 Insider. And also, this is part of a series. This was our first one. So thanks so much, Sarah, for being on the first episode. But please, everyone, check out the next episodes to come. And I'm really happy I can host this. And I'm so happy you all joined us. And see you next time. Thank you, Sarah.
Oops, where's my finger? Whoa.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.